Anyway, well, yeah.
Question on the lab module 13.
Yeah.
There's a warning that states that we're not supposed to be able to finish this with the free license.
Well, maybe well, that's a very good question. I wonder if I did it. Mod 13. Well, you can do it with the trial license, just not the free license. Yeah. So this is what I said, and this is happening to me again today. My trial license keeps expiring. So when that happens, you just have to uninstall it and reinstall it, re-import the 3 files, and then you get another 30 days or 60 days, whatever it is. So yeah, that's true. That's what I did. So I never have actually used the free license. I just keep reinstalling.
Oh, okay.
I reinstalled again today to get another 30 days on the trial license. Good. So that's not too bad. Good. All right. And I think we're just ready to go here. Let me just say a couple of words about the schedule. So this is 50, and we are coming near the end. I'm going to finish most of the Splunk course today. There's only one little bit to go next time. I've got a third red versus blue ready to go here. I mean, boss of the SOC ready to go here. And I'll have another one of those by next time, I imagine. And then we'll have a real competition, which I will probably just be setting up myself because I'm not getting any response from my guy at Splunk, which is, anyway, so I'll have something running here. There is, we'll do a competition this day. And in the days when this class is not meeting, I'm going to be starting the red versus blue again. I wanted to do it all semester, but there were other things like real competitions in the way. So we're just picking up again next week, and that'll be at 11 a.m. from now on. So anybody is welcome to come to this. It's worth extra credit. It is not supposed to be very difficult or advanced. Anybody in any of the security classes should be able to do it. And it may be looking prettier. I just saw today, Kaz has made an improved scoring engine, so it might look better than the things I produce, which are pretty utilitarian and unappealing. But anyway, it should have some kind of in-class competition so people can practice attacking and defending servers. And that'll be hopefully getting more and more fun and more theatrical as we go ahead to where it's not only fun to do, but fun to watch. That is the goal. All right. Anyway, does anybody have any questions from old material? Well, in that case, this is what happened last week. And then 20 minutes after, another 25 or 30 students appeared out of somewhere.
You gonna go downstairs?
Not in 37.
But not in 37. Okay. Well, maybe they're all right. Maybe they're just not coming. This is why it's hard to know. Anyway, well, that's what I figured. Okay. Well, I'll just carry on. Assume they're going to watch the video, or maybe they all gave up or something. Anyway, we'll just.
Did you go down to what we're supposed to turn in for 13? Because I did not see.
There may not be anything. There is nothing to turn in for 13.
Oh.
If
there's a slot for it in the canvas, but
there is. Oh well. I'm glad you told me. I'll take a look at that. And I'm glad you reminded me. I either decided not to do it or I forgot to do it. I'll take a look at it and let you know. And so this is the 23rd. So there's no class next week, or I guess there's 2 weeks away.
Wrong month.
Wait, wrong month. What's going on? Thank you. Good. The 16th, right. So no class next week, but 4-6 is the next class. All right. Good. Well, all right. So let's talk about these things, and I have demonstrations of them. And then I'll demonstrate the remaining, the new boss of the SOC thing. So let's start with these slides, which are here. Okay, so so if you make a search, you can save it and then run it again, and then you can make a report so other people can see it and it'll look pretty. They recommend having a good naming convention. This is standard advice you'll see in all database management. I used to be a DBA, and you have to learn how to label things in a consistent way so you can find them. So they end up with things like sales report, quarterly revenue, things like that. So hopefully you can then do a search. They will all have a word in common and so on. Anyway, so you run a search and just save as a report. And that gives you an opportunity to give it a title, specify whether people should be able to change the time, And then you can save it as a report or you can save it as a dashboard. So anybody can run the reports. You can choose to share it with other people so they can run it. And this is the idea. This is the same thing all databases have, like access. If you go to McDonald's and buy a hamburger, the person sees a screen in front of them and it doesn't have an arbitrary text entry field like a command prompt. It just has a Big Mac and a fries and a shake. It just has a few items and they press a button. That's a database, often an access database. And that is a form they have to get into the database, just like a web form. So all the infinite options in the database are boiled down to just a few forced choices, and they design that. And reports are for the same thing. So somebody making a quarterly report just clicks on it and it runs the quarterly report, and they don't really have to know what exactly goes in it or be able to modify it, or even have the privileges to modify it. It can be a low-level worker that just runs the routine reports, and the designer designs the reports, and those jobs are separated. This is everywhere in business. You'll find it in Microsoft. If you are a domain administrator, you can delegate part of a domain, so a lower-level administrator has enough administrative privilege to do things like just change the passwords in their small unit, but they don't have the ability to do larger things. And that's a very common business need, to delegate things to a lower level role and give people less permissions. So that's what they're allowing here. So you can open the report in a search and change it and then resave it, or you can make a new report. And then you can turn it into tables and visualizations. And so we'll play with that. All right, so let me get my demonstration up here. Now for this one, I'm going to use my online search engine here, the same one you're using for the boss of the SOC. So here, there are only 238 events that you see because you've got to look in the other index. And if I do index equals, should make it bigger, index equal bots v1, and then all time, and then sample it because there are a lot of events, I can then search, and I should see 9,000 events when I'm only looking at 1 in 100 of them. So that's what I expect. So here are the events. And let me get my notes about how I want to do this. Okay, I want to do source equals win event log security. So let's do that. Typically what you do is you go down here and look for something interesting to guide you. And I often start with source, but I don't know what else to do. SRC? No, source. And I'm not disturbed by the fact, you see it? Where is it?
Like a quarter away from the bottom.
Quarter away from the bottom. I saw SRC, but I didn't see, oh, there it is. Thank you, good. All right. So here's the sources, and this is very handy because this lets me identify what monitoring system I'm going to use. So here's Suricata, and here is the Windows event log, and here's stream traffic. So Suricata is the intrusion detection system that picks up things like viruses and known attacks. The Windows event log logs things like logins and object access, and the stream is monitoring direct network traffic, like Wireshark, and sorting it into categories. That's the Splunk stream module. So I could choose, here's the recording of the registry and so on. So in this case, I want win event log security. So this is sysmon, and I haven't got them all here. So let's do top values, I guess. I'm gonna have to, all right, let's try this. So that'll show me all the values. And here it is. There is something called win event log system. Now, there ought to be some way to just click on it to get it, but somehow I've gotten lost here, which tends to happen. And if I go to, now here I've got a visualization giving me this bar chart, which in my experience is just always a waste of time and in the way. Statistics will give it to me down here. Now I can click on win event log system, and now I'll have the opportunity to view the events that have this property. This is what I want to show you. You could type it in, but you don't need to. You can do it with the mouse if you get used to the GUI. So this will give me a new search limited only to system event log entries. And now I was intending to sample by 1 in 100, but the sampling seems to have gone away. But there's only 182 events. So this is a relatively small amount, so it'll move. So now I have 182 events in the system log. And now I can look at the top events in categories. So the category here, there are only 6 types of categories. So the way, when you don't know what you're doing, I look here for something that has a reasonable number of options, like not 100 and not 1. And then I click on it and see what the options are. And this will help me dig down to things. So here's things I might care about. Windows Update Agent and none and so on. So if I wanted to sort the category, I could see the top values here, and that will give me top limit category at all time. And as it goes, okay. Again, it dumps me in this stupid visualization tab, and I prefer the statistics tab. And here we are. These are the 6 possible values of this and how many count of each one there are. All right. So the point of this thing is now I can save this thing. So I can go to Format. If I want to make this into some kind of chart, I can go to Data Overlay, and I can color these things, where the outliers have a certain color and so on. That's one thing you can do. And you can also save this thing as a report. And so call it Windows Security Events.
Are these reports exportable into spreadsheet format?
I'm not sure if you can export them into spreadsheets. That's a good idea. I'm not sure. CSV. Okay, well, that's pretty. Oh, good. All right. So let's view this. And you can export this into CSV up here, up where?
Down a little bit on the right side, there is a. Yeah.
Oh, good, good. So I can export to, CSV. Oh, good. Thank you. Very good. Thank you. I appreciate it. Okay. So anyway, now I've got a report, and I could also put it on a dashboard. And I think I have to put something here. And save. And I can now view a dashboard. And the point of a dashboard is it can have panels. You have a series of these things just to make it look prettier. And here it's got the coloring and so on. So that's just the other ways to present it. All right, and I can also make, that's pivots, I'll get there in a minute. All right, so anyway, that's the game here, making reports from the fields window. Here's a top value report, what we just did. You choose something and then you do top values. And then there's, you can change the limits to something other than 10 if you want to. And you can also have other kinds of visualizations, pie charts and all that jazz, which I think we talked about before. And XY scatter graphs and all sorts of such things. So everything you might want is available. For further analysis, I usually just want a table. All that decorative stuff is when you finally figured out exactly what you want and you just want to show that to management. And then we talked about the data overlay. So here's what dashboards are. Dashboards just have reports in little panels. And they can be other things, but it's usually reports. And so you can have a dashboard with as many of those as you want. And this is the sort of stuff management likes to see. All right. So we talked about monitoring the panels. Also, you can start from a dashboard panel and drill back to the search if you want to. So you do not have to start from zero to recreate the search. You could start from the existing dashboard and go back to the search and modify it to make a modified version of the panel. So this makes a huge difference in dealing with management. I used to work in a escrow agency, and I knew how to do a lot of stuff in Access, but another guy there learned how to make all of his Excel quirks look beautiful. And they really liked that. Learned how to use all these color and border and everything. It really makes a difference for management. Anyway, you can copy your dashboards and so on. All right, and by the way, you're looking at a dashboard here, I think, but it's not that obvious. Anyway, then there's pivots and data sets. There are just more ways to look at things. So you can look at a data set. They appear on the data sets tab, and you can then visualize it with a pivot. And this is just a way to explore that category of data that is in a specified data set. There are some pre-built data sets, and you can also make them. And so you create a data set. I found this interface very baffling at first. It opens and shows you nothing but the total number of events, and then you have to add either filters to exclude events or split the rows and split the columns to make it into a chart. So it's a little screwy, but you can get used to it. So the filter is how you do something like limit the time range to get rid of some of the data. And then split rows is how you would have not just one number, but you turn it into a chart like this, where the type of the name and the number of items. And then you can split columns and have a two-dimensional chart of numbers if you want to. So you'll have choose a column, and then you'll have something like this, the name of the game and some other information here and numbers in the grid. So that's just another way to do it. And you can always go back and modify everything, of course. And you can also turn it into bar charts and so on. So let me demonstrate that one. And again, I can use my online system for this. So I started with this one, and let me just set it up the way I like to, which is I go to search, and then I start with nothing but the index specified. Index is bots v1. And I always start with 1 to 100 sampling to avoid wasting too much time in the early stages. And so now I should find 9,000 events, and I do. Okay, and now I would like to look at suricata events. So I'm going to do source type equals suricata. So down here I've got source type, and there's suricata. So I want to look at the IDS system, picking things up. And now I've only got 1,200 of those, but again, I'm still looking at only 1% of them. Now, visualizations, pivots, split rows, event type. Let me shove this to the side so I can still see it. All right, so now I would like to visualize this. Visualize puts me here, and now I can create a pivot. So I could choose what fields to include. I guess I'll just accept the default, the ones with certain percentage of coverage, which are fields that are in a certain number of the events. So you don't bother with fields that are too rare. And now I have nothing here but the total number of events. And it has turned off my filtering, so I've got a big number, more than the 9,000 or 1,000 I had. But now I'll have all the events. So now I can split rows. I want to do it by event type and split columns by protocol. So I'm not going to filter. I'm just going to split rows and find event type, which is here. And I'll label as optional. I'll leave it that way. So now I have the event types, DNS, HTTP, attack, and so on, and the number of events. And now I can split it the other way by protocol. So split columns, and I've got proto here, and I'll set the defaults again. And now I have the protocols here, TCP, UDP, IPv6, ICMP, number of events in these different types. Now, it might be, for example, that I don't care about UDP. So if I want to get rid of UDP, I should be able to filter that. Click plus protocol is not UDP. So I go and filter plus, come on, hey, plus I say, and nothing happens. Right. Oh, well, you split columns, but, well, it's not working. This is fairly common too. I don't know what to do about it. Let's try going down here. Look at the chart. There's a line chart, which doesn't show you much of anything in this graph, but you can get there. Let's see if going there and comes back makes it wake up. Maybe it's just not going to let me filter. Ah, finally it's popping up. Good. So I wanted to filter by protocol. I think it's because of this attempt to make a GUI by going through a browser that it keeps on losing things. And now I'm going to make it is not UDP. And it should, good, it did load my options, which is very nice. You don't need to type things, you can pick. So now it's going to get rid of that UDP column, just so I can see how to filter things. All right. And I could again make a line chart of this. That's what these things are. This is a grid, this is a line chart, and there are other options. So that gives me some chart of how many of these events there are with time, and there's various decorative ways to put it. All right. Anyway, that's what I wanted to show you about pivots, which is one way to try to display data. And all right, and we'll see more of this. The general logic of this is very important for real security, and there's a lot of talks about visualizing data where you have to somehow make the anomalies stand out. I saw some talks by a lot of people a few years ago with data visualization is a real branch of science, and here's a common case. If I have something like a Windows update, I have Windows 10 that's maybe 10 gigabytes, then they give me an update, and I wonder what they changed. There are various tools to do this. Unix uses diff, or you just have lines, but there are other people that make graphs and colors and everything to somehow pop up what part has changed and try to make it easy to find the important spot. And it's an issue here. Anyway, so that's instant pivot, and you can put that in a dashboard. Now, the last bit is lookups. Now, I saw quite a bit about these on the certification test, so you do have to know what lookups are. I have to know what the different lookup commands do. A lookup is just a way to have more information about the data. You may have some raw output from something like a Windows event log that is just a code number, and you wish you could have the alphabetical name. That's all a lookup is. Additional data that's added, often a CSV file for that purpose. So raw event data has something like this, and you can add data from a lookup, which may give you more information. So that's the game. For example, HTTP status codes, sales prices for products, that sort of thing. So you just make a CSV file. And here's one. The data, raw data may contain this product ID number, but I'm going to add other information, like the long name. So you have that thing there. So you upload the file inside Splunk. Then you define the lookup type. And you can then create a new lookup table file, browse to the CSV, and that will import it into Splunk, so it becomes an incidental database to add to the rest. And you use the input lookup command to view it directly. So input lookup on the file you just put in will just print out the data just so you can see it. All right. And then you can create a lookup definition. You can make it so it automatically runs all the time. And now the imported field will just appear as another field to use. So that's the game. You can specify all the rules about how you input it. And once you bring it in, you can use the lookup command individually to use it in one query if it's not a permanent thing you want to add to the database, or you can make it run automatically. And those are the games. Here's something we talked about before. If you can use output to specify what comes out, and you can use output new if you don't want to override existing fields. All right, and so here's an example of the lookup command. I look at the web, I get purchase items, then I do a lookup. So I look up product ID and output as price and product name. And now I have to refer to the new names, price and product name. I can't refer to the old names, they're gone. And so I get over there. All right. So that's how you create these things. And you can also connect them to the time and so on. So I just do the same thing you're going to do here. Now, this I cannot do in my online database because I need to modify the database, and I'm not anxious to add extra junk to that boss of the SOC data. So I'm using my local Windows machine here, which I got going. I had to reinstall it because my 30 days had been up, but I reinstalled it and re-imported the data. And then I did not go any further, so I can do this live because I'm only going to be able to do it once, fresh. So let me bring up the instructions, which are here. And that's 13, and I should have 12. Here, 12. Let me find it. There's 12. Good. All right, and let's see what this chat comment is. Do we need to sign up? No, just show up for red versus blue. You don't need to sign up. There can be many teams going. There'll be small teams working. And we can have as many teams as necessary. Good. Everybody's welcome. All right. So I've already brought down this product.zip file and unzipped it. So now all I have to do is home search, settings, lookups, lookup table file. So it's search, and then settings, lookup table files, settings, and lookups. And it's still doing something. Lookup table files, okay. All right, so here's the current tables. There are a few already included, like states and countries and such, and I want to create a new one. All right, now I need to save it with these values. I'm going to try and make them visible on the screen at the same time. That may or may not work. Let's see if I can make this a little skinnier, or if something horrible will happen. Looks like maybe it'll work. New lookup table file, okay. So I want to call, the destination app will be search. I'm going to call this product CSV, which is the thing I put on my desktop. So browse, desktop, products, and here's the unzipped one. Okay. And then the file name is going to be products.csv. All All right. So save that thing. Okay, and now there is a thing called products.csv, a new lookup that exists. All right, now if I go back to search, I can do input lookup to see if it worked. So go back to home and back to search. And I should be able to make it bigger. Let's see, Shift Control Plus. Yeah. Okay, so input lookup.
You have to do a pipe first. I don't know why.
Oh, you do. Apparently you do, right? Input lookup, products lookup. Well, fair enough. Thank you. I know the pipe has a strange meaning in Splunk. You use it at strange times. So input lookup, and now I need to give products lookup. I don't remember putting that name somewhere. We're going to see if this works.
You skipped the definition step. You did
dot
that.
CSV behind after
.exe.
dot CSV.
Well,
But yeah,
I must have, because I put in the wrong name, huh? Products.csv.
I think you just skipped the definition step.
Well, there it is. But what? Now, how did I get the product lookup in there?
Yeah, you forgot to add the definition.
Oh, okay. I had to do that. All right. Anyway, so there's the data. All right. Do I need to put that in? Maybe I can modify it. Is there a way to modify an existing lookup? Let's see. That's a good thing to check out. If I want to go home, and by the way, I don't know. Here it is. Good. Okay. If I go settings, lookups, I wonder if you can modify a lookup.
Definition.
Lookup definitions. Good. And
Lookup definition.
I need to make a new one.
Yes.
Oh, so did I skip that?
So you need to make a 12
Yeah.
lookup.
Step 12, save it with these values. Yeah. But so I have to import it again or what?
You don't need to import. I think you just take you.
Okay, good, good. And I can somehow connect this to the old one. Good. So destination app.
Yeah, you need to pick the.
Oh, there it is. Products.csv. I'm catching on. Now I put in products lookup. I'm catching on. Good. Thank you. All right. Good. All right. So now it should understand that if I go to home and then search and then pipe, and input lookup, and product. I wonder if it'll fill it in for me. Apparently not. All right, let's see if that works. And it does. Okay, so there's my information. Good. So now, to get web application data for people who successfully purchased a product, that's here. And I think I need to go to all time. All right. And so these are people who purchased a product getting a 200 response from the web server and going to the success page. And now I can add to the end of that lookup, products lookup, and pick fields out of it. So that will be here. And that should, all right. Now it should give me other kinds of data, which I think will just appear down here. So I've come up with something called product name as product name. And so I should be able to find that down here. And there it is, product name. And somehow I got the parentheses in it. That's rude. Oh yeah, I've copied an extra character. Let's get that out of there. I'm surprised that works. Parentheses are often control characters, and you would end up in trouble using that in a name. It didn't crash, but that's how you create command injection vulnerabilities. So now I have these product names here, and those were not in the original data; those are looked up. So that's the point of it. And now I can. There's a product name field, yeah, and I can create an automatic definition and so on. I don't think I'll bother with that, but that's the point. That's all it does. But these things that are cosmetic, of course, are real important in the real world. And so now I'm going to do 13 next time. What I want to do now is talk about the boss of the NOC. I added another bunch here, and this, I think, is very fun. This is, like I say, the reason I taught this class is because of this boss of the NOC stuff. So we've already talked about the previous one. This one here has, in the previous one, you found an executable file, and you want to find its MD5 hash. And the file name we found previously, I'm going to give away some answers here because I'm not very interested in fighting with that. But the file name is 3791.exe. Because I know some people are getting stuck, and I don't really mind handing out a few answers. No, showing it. So 3791.exe is the file name. Now, if you go here, and I go to home, which should be up at the top. For some reason, I can't get there. I'll go back so it stops doing nonsense. I'll just trim off the URL. The browser won't let me go to the top, which is very common. Making things GUIs in web pages is always problematical because the display of web pages is not very good. Okay, so there we are. All time and 1 to 100. This is how I usually start. I'll see 9,000 events. Now, there was in the previous challenge, you found a file name, and that's the file name. So I start by just putting it in here. I always do it this way. The Splunk people don't like this, where you just put data there without specifying what it means. But it tends to work. Now, if I get rid of the sampling, it's just that it supposedly consumes more CPU. So now I found 76 events that refer to that file name. Now, the question here is, I go to my problem. Okay, I want to find the MD5 hash of it. And I thought this was pretty interesting. So I started with this. And then I just tried this. I wondered if there was an MD5 anywhere. So I went down here and looked. And I found there is an MD5. There is a SHA-1. There is a SHA-256. Now, that might be good, and it might not be. And the problem is there's 55 different values of MD5. So how do I know which one applies to this spot? And I went and read an article about how to scan with Sysmon. Now let's take a look at another event here, which is the source. The source here shows there are 5 different things that report MD5s. But when I looked into it by researching, I said the cool thing is Sysmon. Sysmon has operational fields that do this. And here's where you'll learn something important about Windows. So I'm going to just go to the events that have that value of Sysmon. And then I want to look at those events. So if you look at those events, you'll see all kinds of Microsoft automatically recorded information. And the most important thing to learn about Microsoft event data is event ID. I took the Microsoft Windows Tech Support certification years ago with Windows XP, and a Microsoft event log is very big and very confusing. Thousands of events every minute, scrolling by. Every simple option you do, like opening a folder and opening a file, creates like 50 or 100 events. And the way you ever understand anything is this event ID number, which is up here. This event ID is 5. And if you just Google an event ID, everybody will tell you what it means. The Microsoft documentation is almost always completely worthless, but there's all kinds of independent blogs that record what every event ID means and what to do with it. So that is where you start to make sense of Microsoft data. And you see the event ID is here, and I have 7, 1, 3, and 5. And when I read a little article about how to find these things with Splunk, they say check out 7 or 1. And you'll see why. So let's take a look at event ID 7. There's a lot of those. And event ID 7 is here. And I can get event description. And this is image load. So every time you take an executable from the hard drive and copy it into RAM so you can execute it, that's an image load. So this is obviously a good place to look for the MD5 of any file. And this, by the way, is something we'll do a lot next semester in the malware analysis course. If you run a program like Notepad or something, it just takes the exe off the hard drive and copies it directly into RAM and then runs it. And it shouldn't modify it at all. Malware can take the RAM image of a running file, rip out the guts, replace it with other guts, and let it run. And the operating system will continue to execute it, believing it's still the old thing with the old permissions, but it's not. And that's an activity called process hollowing. But anyway, that's what's going on here. This image load activity is very cool. So if I look at those image load events, there are only 62 of them. Now I still have a whole lot of different MD5s, 53 different MD5s. So I can try to figure out what they mean. And if I just look at the raw events, then I will see the information here. Down here, I've got an MD5, CC877. And to know what that is, here's the image loaded. So it looks like that might be this file, but the thing that really determines it is the command line, parent command line. And I think I found that here. Punctuation. App. Here's the app that's run. And I thought I would see a parent command line, but anyway, I see it here. So let's go back and see there's 53 of these, 52 of those. Image loaded, that's what I thought. Image loaded here seemed very easy to understand. That does seem to be the exact file that was loaded. And so let's take a look at those. To see all the values, the only way I know how to do it is to start from the top values and then change this number. There may be some more clever way, but this is the only way I've found to quickly see all the values of a field. Now it makes this worthless bar chart, but the statistic shows me what I'm going to see. So here are the various things that are loaded. Most of them are DILs, and the one up top is the one I want. So if I go to that event, of which there are only 2, I will find the actual MD5 hash of that file. And that's how you get it. And this, more important than answering that question, is understanding the process, how you quickly take a huge database and zero in on something interesting. And it takes a little bit of knowledge of the Microsoft operating system and a little patience. And this general philosophy is to use the mouse and start from the field list and find a field that looks interesting and look at the values and try and narrow down that way. That is the way you get somewhere. This is like Wireshark. If you try looking at lines one by one, you will just go mad. You have to find some way of, the general rule of databases, you have to have sweeping movements that sweep a bunch of it off the table, or you will never get there. You have to find some way to exclude a bunch of it, and then exclude a bunch of that. With big motions, it's the only way you're ever going to zero in on anything without working too hard. Anyway, so next thing is very interesting. What was the first brute force password used? There was a brute force login attack. Remember, brute force login attacks, by the way, in case you're interested, this is a misnomer. Mathematically, a brute force should try every possible combination of letters, but nobody ever does that. What they use is dictionary attack, and everyone calls it a brute force attack. So that's the current degradation of the language. But anyway, so what that means is somebody tried to log in over and over again with just a whole lot of different passwords. So what I did was just find events using login. So I get rid of everything else and look for login. Now, since I don't have very much filtering going on, and especially since I did the expensive operation of just searching not for field name equals value, but just the value, the way you would in Google, I know it's going to burden the server, so I'm going to turn on some sampling. So let's do 1 to 10 to make it 10 times faster. And now I get 845. By the way, on my server, it often puts a check mark here when it finishes. It's not doing that now. One thing about Splunk is I can't tell when it's done searching. But anyway, so now I found some login events. Okay, now another thing I could do is look at the source and see what sources I have for something that contain login. And I've got all kinds of things, but one thing I have that's probably the best is HTTP. Suricata will log it if it is perceived as some kind of attack, but an individual login event should probably not be perceived as an attack. And here's log files and DNS. I really don't care about DNS. If there's a DNS lookup of something containing login, I really don't think that's important. But HTTP is very helpful. HTTP is where you're really going to be hashing up the name and the password. And I have 568 of those, even filtering to only, all right, 1 in 10. So I'm going, that's one thing. And in HTTP, well, let's do it this way. Let's go to source. There's many ways to do it, but I'm going to start this way. I'll go to source and filter for just stream HTTP. Okay, and now I could look at some of these to see what they look like. Okay, so here's what I have. This is HTML coming down, and I have filer giraffe 404 message. Well, that's probably not good. and on we go. But if I look down here where it's filtered things, one thing that is going to be fun is the form data. And I should be able to find that here. Let's find the action. This is something that was blocked. And I wanted to find whether it was post or get. This was a get method. Now, if you know about the web, get is almost never used to log in. You almost always use post. So I'd like to filter by HTTP method. So let's do that. HTTP method is over here. I got posts and gets. I only want the posts. The posts are probably to log in. So let's filter only for the posts. And now take another look. And post has a thing. I guess I'll just go down here. Post has a thing called HTTP post data or something, form data. There it is. And if you just look at the form data, here's what's going on. And you can see I have a bunch of ordering items. So people are shopping and purchasing items, and they're passing up the product number of their item and such. And that's what most of this is. And that is not what I care about. So that's kind of disturbing. Now there were more than 100 values and so on. Let's see if rare values does me any good. I've ordering. The problem is almost all of them have happened only once. So let me go back to my hints. Top values of URL, that's what I wanted. So I need to have some way of sorting. And what I did was use URL. So if I go back to my statistics, and then I quit doing rare and go back to these. So here's my post data, and I'm still looking only 1 in 10 of them because I'm still trying to find a way to limit it. The part I thought was helpful was URL, and that is here, or URL or URI, I don't think it matters. Okay, here are people doing a search, and here's people trying to get to an administration page, and here's people just going to a home page, an index page. So now I think we're getting somewhere. I don't care about search. I care about logging in, and this is what looks like maybe it's a login. So let's try those. That's limited it down a bit. And now let's look at the form data, which is here. And now the form data, username equals admin, and password equals United, username and admin, password equals Calvin. This is the brute force attack. That's what I wanted. And now the only thing missing is I'm still filtering at 1 in 10, and I have 42 events. So I'm going to have no sampling. And now I'm going to have 421 events. So now I have managed to find just the interesting events. And I have everything I want about them. So now I can answer a lot of questions about them. And in this, you just have a series of challenges. The first thing is, what was the first password used? So you have to sort them by time and find the first password. The next one is, which one was the correct password? And for that, find the form data. And I'll just point it out here. It's really pretty cool. I wondered, first I had a guess that it would just be the last one. But I said, is there a way to really be sure? And if I found a good way to be sure, just notice how many choices you have here of things. And what I noticed was HTTP user agent has 2 choices. And when I clicked on it, there's 412 that are Python, and there's 1 that is a real browser. So they ran a Python script to try 400 guesses. And when they found the right one, they came back and logged in with Firefox. So if you just look, I thought that was very nice. So I was able to pretty quickly prove that the Python script found one, and then they came back later, and that's going to turn out to be a bunch of these questions. So what was the correct password? And what was the time interval between the time when the automated tool found it and the time when the bad guy used it? In this case, it was very quick. In real attacks, I've done several real attacks on the web, it's typically like a day. People run an automated scanner, it runs and scans thousands of websites, then they look at it tomorrow and log into the ones it found. Yeah?
Are you looking for the tool time or when the user used it?
Well, the difference between when the tool found it and when the user logged in. And so you'll see, that's why there'll be 2 logins that both use the same password, one from the script and one from a real browser. And you can get the number of seconds and fractions of a second between those 2 events. And then you see how many total passwords were attempted. And those are good things to see. So that's analyzing a brute force attack. And that's the kind of thing that I think is awesome about Splunk and very realistic. So I'll have some more of these next time, and then a contest the time after that, which is optional, but should be fun, where you'll compete to see who can solve the most of these challenges. Yeah?
For the final grade for this class,
Yeah.
I'm going to do it for this class specifically. You're going to grade it at the end of the semester?
Yes, I think so. There is going to be no midterm grade in this class. I think short-term classes don't have it. And it'll just go by total points.
Okay.
So, and it, by the way, these Boston SOC things are worth an awful lot. So the quizzes are worth, I think, 20 points, and the projects are worth, I think, 10 points each or something. And these things are worth a lot more, like 35 and 50. So a few of these will make up everything.
Thank you.
Yeah, but that's the idea. These are well beyond the actual certification. The certification is very simple, perhaps even too simple to even be worth one credit, but it's certainly a good thing to have on your resume. This practice here is what matters, and the real competition, I think, is what really prepares you to do it on the job. But anyway, but I mean, the point of a certification is not to mean that you're really ready to work on the job as much as that you're ready to be trained on the job. It means they will expect to do some training and give you a routine activity. Incident response beginners get the worst job called security analyst. And a security analyst used to be the guy that reads all the email. Now you're watching something like Splunk and you're just watching for hours and hours junk scrolling by that is all the same. And you're just looking for like 5 common things, and you know what to do when I see this and what to do when I see that, and anything else you refer up. It's just like the frontline tech support where all you do is tell them what version you're using. I can reset your password. Did you try restarting the machine? You know, you're the frontline person.
Tier 1.
Yeah, tier 1. You're doing the simple thing, which is pretty much drudgery, but that's where you start. And everybody does this for maybe 6 months, and they try to get promoted off it up to something more fun like threat hunting. And they have an endless chain of basically temps coming into that job. That is your chance to pay your dues. And if you're sharp, then they'll grab you and move you up. And a lot of people give up and quit at that level. I worked, when I was in legal business, there was a case I had where we had boxes of proof for medical insurance claims. And we just had to make 2 Xerox copies of every page carefully for 7 boxes of stuff. And I did some of it, and then I had a guy come in and did it. And he worked for like 3 weeks, and they said, I'm going to go back to delivering pizzas, which was more challenging and fun than this. I thought it was interesting, actually, because I was trying to make sure that we didn't miss any page. And I had this system of barcodes and numbers and counting and stuff to make sure that we had every page, but just standing all day in front of the Xerox machine, that was pretty brutal. Anyway. All right, any questions? Maybe any questions from the online folks? All right, well, I'm going to quit the share. I'll go to the lab and help anybody, if anybody wants to work on projects today. And I'll see you in this class in a couple of weeks, and hopefully next week at Red versus Blue.